The Robin Pod is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are a reputable East Hull-based car specialist and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull KR Rovers Forever members. Hello and welcome to the Robin Pod Weekly, East Hull's premier independent Hull Kingston Rovers podcast. This week I join Lee and Jamie from the Wakefield Trinity Heritage Podcast for a very special crossover pod which sees us discuss the Robins' victory over Castleford, what we can expect from Wakefield on Thursday night, and the parallels between the Robins' recent rapid rise and what Trinity are hoping to achieve since they were relegated last season. I'm also delighted to be joined once again by Steve Till as he shares his memories of games gone by and he helps me answer all your questions in question time. Let's kick off though with how the Robin Pod came to fruition and how I came to support the mighty Hull Kingston Rovers.
As well. Johno, it's a pleasure. You've had us on your podcast a couple of times, but it's the first time you've been our guest. So for anyone listening who isn't aware of you and what you've done for probably as long as we have, tell us about you, your background with Hull KR and when you started the Robin Pod.
Yeah, well, the Robin Pod started 4 years ago now, and it was on the back of COVID and probably being bored and needing something to do, and you know, I felt there was a void. In terms of rugby league, you get the professional media in terms of the Reach Media and all that, and then you get your local radio, and it was for me. I was looking for something like, where do the fans get the opportunity to voice their opinions, and when do the fans get the opportunity to engage with each other? And you know, I'm a fan. I started out with Joe Appleyard, who still comes on the Robin Pod now. We just wanted to give a voice to supporters and voice our opinions. We never acted as a voice of the club. We never acted as a voice of supporters. We definitely didn't want to be cheerleaders for the club either, because we wanted to be that critical friend in terms of things that are always great, but let's talk about it. Let's find a solution. Let's cast an opinion. You know, you don't need to have an opinion and be abusive and stuff. Sometimes you can actually just say what you think, and that's okay. So that's what we wanted to do with the Robin Pod, and we're 4 years in now. We pride ourselves on being able to give so many supporters the opportunity to voice their opinions. We always look to get opposition supporters, media people, just a whole range of opinions, because I think sometimes rugby league is quite insular. You can, your opinion is the one that matters most. Well, actually, let's hear to other people and see what they think. And you may not agree with it, but you know what? You can sometimes understand it. So that's the whole point of the Robin Pod. It's trying to be quite balanced with it. And of course, as well, it's we are biased as well, though. It is Hull Kingston Rovers. It is what our views are on that, so we don't shy away from that. But no, it was 4 years in now. 4 years seems to have been a long, long time ago. But no, while we're still enjoying it, we'll still keep doing it.
What's your first memories of Hull Kingston Rovers, mate? Are you from that way? Have you always supported them?
Yeah. Well, God, I was. I've been lucky enough to have my family sort of indoctrinated into the Robins. My mum, big Robins fan. Her mum, a Robins fan, going back to the 1980s and the glory years, even back to the 70s. I was quite lucky that I've managed to see the Robins at various stages. Well, I say fortunate, going from Division 2 into 1, seeing them getting promoted into Super League, seeing them in 1997 at Wembley when they played the Silk Cut Challenge Plate. Lucky enough to be at the old Wembley. I'm not as old as you think I am, so being able to have that opportunity, and what got me into the Rovers though wasn't necessarily success. It was about that family, that going to watch live sport was so important then. And I think that's what we forget sometimes, that actually it don't matter where you're playing, what division you're in, or whether you're chasing titles or success. actually just watching live sport in a semi-professional stadium where it looks proper, you're able to get, all that is what probably got me involved. So yeah, it's been a long, hard journey to get where we are now. And there's lots of people who've been supporting the Robins a lot longer than I have. But yeah, it's sometimes it's a labour of love, but now we're starting to enjoy some of the relative good times compared to what we was brought up in the 80s.
I don't know what it is, Dad. I think you probably share this opinion, but if I definitely don't have a second team in Super League, but if I did, it would be 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗃, and I don't really know why. I know you've obviously got a few of our ex-boys over there as well, but especially recently, Dad, I don't know if you agree with this, but 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗃 seems to have done things right. You know, they've recruited right, they've built the stadium up, the fans are coming back, they've got a great head coach, they're signing good overseas. I don't know if you agree with that, Dad, but I do really like how 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗃 have managed things.
Yeah, it's that sort of product they've got into. I've heard our management talk about the pattern that Leigh Leopards and Hull Kingston Rovers have done now, coming out of the Championship, getting to Wembley, getting to a grand final. That's what we want to follow. You know, you look at 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗃 now, 11,000 turning up for a home game. It's fantastic. And I was just listening to what Johno was saying. I grew up watching rugby league in the 70s and 80s. And Hull Kingston Rovers were always a tough side. You know, I grew up when they were the champions. They went to Wembley. I was at Wembley in 1980 when Roger Millward lifted the trophy. I remember that pack of, Millington, Holstock, Watkinson, Casey, Lowe and Rose. You know, they still roll off your tongue. And it's 40 years ago, that pack. And funny enough, Wakefield signed half that pack in the 80s. But yeah, I grew up watching Hull Kingston Rovers and win everything and come to Bellevue and smash us time and time again. We hardly ever won at Craven Park in that era either. So yeah, they always had a soft spot for them. I've always enjoyed going over to two Craven Parks, the one the old one and the most recent one.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's funny as well because you mentioned some of the former players from the 80s, and I'm fortunate to get sometimes a few of them on the podcast, and what they're desperate to do is stop talking about the 80s, stop talking about their successes. They are desperate for a new batch of players to come on and take that mantle. They're almost not embarrassed, but their time's gone now, and they're ready for that next batch of players to come on and do something. Don't get me wrong, it's a different era, but what's great is that when you talk about what they did and what you saw them doing, hopefully we're getting to the point where maybe the time is now for a new crop of Hull Kingston Rovers players to finally actually put their hands on silverware and lift it up wherever that may be.
Yeah. I think it's because I've just got a passion for history and heritage. So that sort of, I suppose it's a bit like us. We're 20 years before that. So
yeah,
we won everything in the 60s. That's when our Trinity was the top dogs. And a lot of people said that time's been and gone. It's 56 years ago now. When are we going to repeat that? Whether our time's going to come again, hopefully it will. But I know what you're saying. Some of the players of that era want to move on, but we don't want to forget them.
You speak about your podcast, Johno, which obviously the Robin Pod. Anyone can listen to that. It's on all podcasting platforms. It's fantastic. And you speak about, you speak of the good things, the bad things. Have you got much bad to say recently? Because looking at probably from 2 years ago up until now, last year you had a fantastic year. Season before you got to Wembley and just missed out, and now you're one of the favourites to win Super League this year, probably behind Wigan and maybe behind Warrington. But I'd have you as second favourites if I'm honest. Are you all positive and sunshine and rainbows at the minute, or is there still a few things that you want working out?
I'll tell you what, do you know what, on field, I'm a firm believer in trusting in the people who've got in charge. We've been on a relatively short journey under Woody Peters, but it's been quite transformational. And it's not just what Woody Peters has done, it's the off-field stuff with Neil Hudgell bringing Paul Lakin in. I mean, you have to go back to when Tony Smith was in charge to see some of the things that they were doing there. This isn't just a fly-by-night. There've been building blocks put in place to make the Robins be where they are now. Negative-wise, we're supporters, aren't we? In that our natural disposition is when everything's great, you still find something that you don't like. I suppose in terms of playing-wise, do you know what? I really trust the players. It's really weird. Like this start of the season, now we've been on that journey to the grand final, you sort of slow down a bit. You're not excited for every first up game because you've got that long-term plan in your head. You know where we're aiming to be. So it's a bit of a different mindset, which maybe for a lot of Rovers supporters is a bit unnerving because you're having to slow down a little bit and go, no, look at the bigger picture. Look at Wigan, losing to Lee. They won't have predicted that was going to happen. So I think you look at the bigger picture. But no, do you know what? Generally, everything that's been going on around the club, it is on and off the pitch. It is transformational. Match days at Craven Park, it's an occasion. You are literally going for something more than just a rugby league game. And I think that's a testament to all the off-field staff, what they've done. They've created this environment where people just, yes, of course, the be-all and end-all is what happens on the pitch, but how can we maximise the opportunity to generate more revenue, more income? How can we make the supporter experience better? And I think that's one of the, not just what's happening on the pitch, but that's one of the biggest things about Rovers at the moment is that actually when you go to a game, it's more just than the game.
The boys at 𝗪𝗂𝗴𝗲𝗄 are coming on board for sponsorship ahead of the 2025 season. They provide high-quality performance clothing for people of all shapes and sizes, linked to your personality and style. Their mission is to empower you to feel confident, comfortable and fashionable in your own skin. They look to provide accessible clothing for anybody and everybody. 𝗪𝗂𝗴𝗲𝗄𝗴𝗲 also work with local rugby league clubs to help them with their game day kits, training wear and everything else in between. For more information, contact them on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok or hop onto their website at www.tic5apparel.com.
Linking to modern times then, Johno, tell us about what your thoughts were on the Cas game last week, because I think a lot of people were backing 𝗀𝗂𝗧 hammering. The important thing is you came out with 2 points, but they made it hard for you, didn't they, Cas?
Oh, mate, when I looked at Cassie's squad, and I still think it now, they are dire. That squad is not, as much as you might talk about the Papua New Guinean imports, and they're still being led round by Joe Westerman, Liam Watts. These are players that 5 years ago probably should have retired, let alone now. All I will say is Joe Westerman did actually, he hobbles round the pitch. It's amazing. He's like, he don't run. He just seems to be able to get going and managed to pass the right pass at the right time. And he did have us on strings at times. But no, don't forget Castleford was smarting from that defeat to Bradford. I think they had a firm kick up the backside. Joe Burgess mentioned it in the interview we did after the game with Sky Sports that I think that the Robins probably underestimated the response that they'd get. But they did have a firm kick up the backside. And don't forget as well, Brett Delaney, who's credited with improving the Robins' defence, who is now their defensive coach as well. So, do you know what? These early games, it's just about getting that win, isn't it? Get that win, get the points on the board, and then after 5 games, you'll probably look back and go, right, where are we at? Then you get to that magical 10 games, and then that's where the season sort of looks like where it might go. I mean, that's not definite, but you look at it and go where teams are placed. But, was I expecting Rovers to make as much hard work of it as they did? No. But it's round 1. Get the points on the board and then worry about it afterwards.
You've got as many points as us now. That's the main thing. Johno, just from your perspective, and you can be as awful or as bright as you want to be. Coming up now, your second game of the year, at the start of the year when you saw you were going to Wakefield, did you think, right, nice easy 2 points versus to what you think now? Do you still think we might be an easy win, or what do you think Wakefield Trinity this year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm unfortunate enough to share an office with LFC fans. So when they talk about the teams that they think they may be better, they were putting Wakefield down, probably just above Cas. So I didn't see it as that. I think Cas have been smart. Wakefield have been smart. You boys, you've recruited really well. You've got some players who have deserved the opportunity to play in the Super League based on what you did in the Championship, and then you've been able to then sprinkle in some experienced Super League professionals in there. So for me, I think Wakefield, I put you above Huddersfield, I put you above Cas. The Salford situation, who knows where that is? Who knows where they will be? But I a lot of people have said, "Oh, great start to the season. You get to play Cass, you get to play Wakefield." I'm a bit fearful of coming to Wakefield, to be honest, because probably like you guys, you're not quite sure what is going to come out, and the Robins, they'll be smarting after that performance against Castleford because they won't be happy with what they put out there. 𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 will use that to give them a kick up the backside, just like Danny Maguire did with Cass after they lost to Bradford. So, you look at it and you go, do you really want to be playing Wakefield? If I'm honest, would I rather play Wakefield than Wigan right now? I'd probably rather play Wakefield. But this is your opportunity. This is your first home game of the season. Big crowd. First game back after being promoted. It's all there for the Wakefield players, isn't it? So, there is a little bit of trepidation. On paper, of course, you pick Wakefield. Open up with Cass, play Wakefield next. Why would you not? Now, this round one's put a little bit of made people a little bit nervous, haven't they? So I was a little bit of trepidation.
And it's made us a bit more excited as well, because obviously, since you last came, you last came to Trinity in September 2023, which is 18 months ago.
Yeah,
what place has changed dramatically. It's not a dump anymore. We've got a nice new shiny stand. The whole place is different. The fact that initially we got a Thursday night disappointed us. We wanted a Sunday game with a massive following. But like I said at the beginning, we've sold nearly 8,000 tickets already, and that's massive for us. And we had a grand final last year where we played the championship grand final against Toulouse. We had 8,000 on a Saturday night under floodlights and fireworks. It's going to be the same atmosphere. And like Rovers fans are going to come, and it's like, it's not going to be unlike your place, and it's bouncing in our place. We're sort of quite excited, the fact that, you struggle against Cass, but, that's been and gone. The fact that we went to Headingley with four first teamers missing and beat Leeds, it sort of put us on quite excited about everything. So we'll be ready. Initially we thought, when Ian Hargreaves is going to come and he's going to cause us some trouble. We're going to be ready for him. If we kick off and he goes straight to him and pits him at Meakin, he'll get stuck into him from minute one. But apart from that, I think we're just a different beast. We're not just a promoted team that's going to come up and be easy beats. We've recruited well. We've started well.
No, and if you look to London last year, you're a completely different beast to what London did in terms of when they got promoted and the squad that they was then able to put out in Super League. So no, I think what the beauty with Wakefield is that they similar to Leigh when they got promoted. They took a gamble in terms of recruitment and backed themselves to be in Super League, so that they recruited wisely. That meant that you was able to then get the players that you wanted earlier on. You was then able to enter into them negotiations. It was so important because now you didn't get promoted and go, right, who do we need to sign now? You'd already done that base of recruitment, which was so important. I think when you come into Super League, when you go into pre-season training, you need to be with your squad pretty much intact for what you're going to play with, because if you try and leave it too late, I think you're gonna falter. So it's great credit to Wakefield. Obviously, you saw under your previous chairman, he took them to a certain level, and he'd done as much as he could, and then the new guys come in and obviously reinvested, not just reinvested, but reinvigorated the club, energy, can-do attitude. No, let's do this, and I think. Actually, that's what supporters buy into. It's not just always what happens on the pitch, like we mentioned about the Robins and the match day experience, for example. It's about feeling like you're excited about doing something. When you're excited, you will go that extra. You do that bit extra. You'll spend that bit more money. You'll get there earlier. You'll do all these things because you're excited to go. When you're down in the dumps, it's a chore, and I think that's what. For you guys, I mean, I might be wrong, but for you guys, it must be like you feel excited again to be back watching rugby league. You feel like you've got a chance to do something. And not only have you done that, you put Leeds back in the place as well.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. I couldn't have predicted a better start than that Leeds game, Dad?
I know. I think from what you were saying there, we're still trying to get our heads around it. I don't think it's the same over at your place. We're reaching grand finals on Wembley's. 2 years ago, we had the worst season ever in our history. We won 4 games out all season long and got relegated, and it was doom and gloom. now we're following the Championship through and sat where we are now on the cusp of a new season, a lot of us genuine fans are still trying to get our heads around the fact that the place is so different, the team's so different, everybody's so positive, and Hull Kingston Rovers are coming on Thursday, and we're sort of quite confident about it. So it is a strange place to be in, being in a Trinity fan at the moment.
Johno, let's look at the 2025 squad, mate, because this Hull KR team is frightening, I think. Like you say, you've built recruitment over time, you've brought players through, you've recruited smart, and built a squad that I honestly think is arguably one of the best in the league. So I'll go through you 1 to 17 as in squad numbers, and then just look at your key signings, and you can talk us through who kind of Wakefield need to look out for and who you've been excited to see in a Hull KR top. So in terms of squad numbers, so starting from number 1, Niall Evalds, Tom Davis, 𝗬𝗂𝗍𝗂, Oliver Gildart, Joe Burgess, Mikey Lewis, Tyrone May, Suaso Su, Jez Litton, Jared Warrior-Hargreaves, Dean Hadley, James Batchelor, Elliot Minchella, Michael McAlorum, Sam Luckley, Jai Whitbread, and Reece Martin. And Kalepi Tanganoa is not too far out with that as well. So just top to bottom there, either current internationals, previous, or on the cusp of being internationals there, mate. You must be proud of that squad you've built.
Yeah, it's some smart recruitment, isn't it? And initially, Willie Peters came to the Robins on a 3-year contract, very much building to get to that point. He signed a contract extension, which is going to keep him here longer than that initial 3 years. And I do genuinely believe that there was a concerted effort to make sure that within that 3 years, that by the third year, that there would be silverware. The squad they've assembled for this season is experienced. You've got some real leaders in that side: Reece Martin, Hargreaves, McAlorum, let alone our existing captain Minchella. So you've got real blokes in the team. You've got men who have been out there, played at the highest level, led players. The accusation I've seen from some supporters from some other teams is journeyman players who are coming to the end of the career. I don't think that. I think they're energised, they're invigorated to deliver success for the Robins. And don't forget as well, we lost a few experienced players. Players like Matty Parcell, George King. They've gone. They've been replaced by others. But no, it's an exciting squad, and there's a bit of a feeling from people who come on the Robin pod and supporters in general that, bloody hell, if we don't win it this time, when will we? Or if we don't get silver, because the resources that have been pumped into the side, the players that we've got, sport's not a perfect science. We all know that, don't we? But, geez, they've never had a better chance, have they? And I do firmly believe that with the experience they've got in the side, coupled with being fit, I think that's one of the biggest things about the Robins is that the players, the big-name players, are out on the pitch for as long as possible. Previously, we'd signed some players who might have a big name, but you wouldn't see him out there on the pitch as often as you'd like to see. So I think that's the key to it, is how often do we see these big players out there? And it's an exciting squad. I look at Wigan; they've not really recruited, have they, at all? There's no big name players. So can we go one better than them? I firmly believe that we can. I think it will be Wigan and Rovers come the end of the season competing for the League Leaders' Shield and Grand Final. Challenge Cup's a bit of a different one, but we're in the best place we've ever been to be able to win something and lift silverware.
What do you think's been missing? When you lost to Leigh at Wembley, you lost to Wigan at Old Trafford. What was missing from those squads that you might now have?
Well, a decent goal kicker, and then Reece Martin goes and misses. Misses. What did he get? He got 1 out of 4, I think. No, 1 out of 4. And you go, bloody hell, is he a kicker's cursed? Goal kicking is a big thing. Michael Lewis had to step up. Don't forget, last season we were supposed to start with Jordan Abdul as the main kicker. That never panned out. He departed and went to Catalan. That left then Mikey Lewis having to take on the kicking responsibilities. We had a few others, James Batchelor, Jez Litton, they took kicks, but it's not their main thing. And I think, it'd be a bit of a miss, really, to say that Reece Martin's coming just for his kicking, because on Friday against Castleford, he was our top tackler, 50 tackles, the carries he makes, the plays, so he's not just here for kicking, but he should be, or hopefully will be, the one who just gives you that 1% more than you need against the other team. And I think that is where the kicking is. I think this squad is quite settled. They're quite comfortable within what they're able to do. But it's them 3 points. They're not 3 points, but, it's such a difference in it. If you can slot over 2 points, if you can slot over your penalties, they're the difference in games. And I think that's what we've been missing.
It is an honour and a privilege to be here on the Trinity Heritage Podcast. Thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Lee, for having me on board. My name is Dan. I'm a former Royal Marine and I am the founder of Modern Warriors. Modern Warriors is a community and a programme that helps men take control of their mind, their body and their energy. It combines breathwork, mindset training and embodiment work to help them break past their limitations, build authentic confidence and take full ownership of their life. Men's health and well-being is something that is super close to my heart, and I want to help as many men as possible realise that they have the power within them to create their reality and choose the experience that they want to have. The power of community and brotherhood is unmatched, and being surrounded by other men that are on a similar journey makes the world a difference. Everything that you need to become the man that you want to be is a skill that can be learnt, and that's exactly what we cover in the programme. You can connect with me on Instagram. My handle is all lowercase, danlun, DANLUNN_Modern Warriors, or you can contact me via email, and that is dan@modernwarriors.co.uk.
Totally agree. I think when you look at it from that perspective, I always remember years ago when Leeds didn't take a 2 points, I think, in a Challenge Cup final, and ever since then, Sinfield knocks over every 2 points he ever had the chance to do, and it's imperative, isn't it? What was the grand final result? Were you guys? Was it 8-2?
9-2.
9-2. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying you obviously missed any goals, but if you maybe had a confident goal kicker, you never know. But what do you think are the top three kind of key players for Trinity fans to worry about, I guess, or keep an eye out that are gonna try and split us open for people who don't know 𝗀𝗂𝗏𝗏 as well?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious one is Mikey Lewis, isn't it? He wasn't happy on Friday. He didn't think he played that well. He's a man. I call him a man now. A lot of people thought he was a young player. No, he's a man. He's bulked out. He's took on responsibility. He thrives on the pressure, and then he holds himself accountable for when things don't go right. So I think you can't look past him as being probably the one player who really does create chaos for the opposition and really does bring the game to the opposition. And then you start looking like 𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏. He's still somebody who causes problems for the opposition. He's, there's a joke over in Hull, that supporters of another side across the river thought he was done. And then he's gone and put himself into the New Zealand Test side to play in the Pacific Championship. So he's definitely not done. I think he's a massive threat. Look at 𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏. I mean, a hat-trick, showed a player who probably many people think he's probably had his time. For me, top three players, though, Mikey Lewis. If you look in the forwards, the obvious one to go to is Wawa-Hargreaves. I looked at the Castleford game. I thought he was probably trying too much, too hard. He's trying to make a mistake, go through the process. I think 𝗀𝗄𝗃 is the one who punches holes in people. He's a completely different beast from when we signed him from the NRL, and I think he admits that he's fitter now than he's ever been. So Mikey Lewis, 𝗀𝗄𝗃. And then looking across the line, one player that I absolutely love is Niall Evalds. The way he just glides through the defence, he's able to link up play. He's not afraid to take the high ball, and when he does, he returns it back. For someone who's quite slight and not the biggest player, he's got a lot about him. But when he's in attack as well, he's somebody you just cannot take your eye off, because he'll either pass it or he'll run through you. So yeah, there's it's quite a tough question actually, and that's not being arrogant, because I look across the team and I go, yeah, it could be him. It could be him. There's the strike threats all over the place.
What's your thoughts on the trio you picked up from our place a couple of years ago? Your Whitbread, your Tanganoas and your Bachelors.
Oh, mate, you've done us a right deal, haven't you, Whitbread, there was people going, because at the time we had Reece Kennedy, we'd let him go to London. People were questioning whether he was an upgrade in terms of Whitbread, whether he was an upgrade on Kennedy. Well, I'll tell you what an engine he's got. He's just, he just goes and goes and goes, gives you everything. Tanganoa, You see his pace, his power, his strike threat. The challenge we've got with 𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗧 is how we get him on the pitch now, because obviously we brought Rhys Martin in. We've got Batchelor, of course, another former Wakefield player. So we've definitely picked your pocket and probably got on the right end of you not doing too well and then picking up some of your better players.
Exactly, and I think that was the 2023 season. That's when they all roughly went that year, because Batchelor would have been a future captain for us. If it would have hung around and he would have been part of that squad, he'd have slotted quite nicely into our squad now. Whitbread, if I felt as though he always wanted to go, because it was such a bad season for us. He had a great season, then seemed to switch off back end, and I think he'd already signed for Rovers. 𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗧, we tried to keep him. But I think he'd already signed for Rovers as well mid-season before our new owners took over. But moving the other way, what did you think of Matty Staunton? Because we love him so far.
Yeah, do you know, he's. I think 𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗏𝗏 will admit, we're in a salary cap spot, aren't we? Would he rather keep him? Of course he would. I think Matty Staunton was one of the few players who's gone. 𝗀𝗂𝗧𝗏𝗏 is ruthless in terms of the players he lets go. Look at Corey Hall, the circumstances around how he went. But I think Matty Staunton was one that he wished he could have kept, but he can only keep so many. And if you're bringing players in, Matty Staunton, I think, you forget how young he is, really. I think, what is he, 24, 25? Yeah. He's still got so much ahead of him in terms of his career and the position he plays. So that is one. There's not many players at the moment who leave the Robins where you go, God, I wish we hadn't let him go. Matty Staunton, I think if you ask most 𝗀𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏 supporters, will be the one where they go, it'd be nice to keep him. But on the flip side, it'd have been really hard to make an argument for where he would play in the team right now, based on who we've got. So I think we've got a great signing. I think he's very much in the James Batchelor mould, where he's relentless. He keeps going. I've questioned sometimes his fitness in terms of his body shape and stuff like that. I think he could do a bit better to put himself in a better position. But he's a tough player, and I'd have quite happily kept him at the Robins this season and beyond.
Yeah, and he's also in the right place at the right time for us, because when we signed him, I don't think he would have been a starting maybe 17. We've lost Josh Griffin and we've lost our new signing, Seth nicotimo. They're both injured. Matty Staunton stepped in along with Jack Croft in the second row, and they've played 2 games each against Goal was an 82-0 walkover. Leeds at the weekend. And he's got a right engine on him. He's sort of linked into that right side on Saturday against Leeds. He linked up with Ollie Pratt and Matty Russell on the wing. Our right side demolished Leeds. Poor old Ash Hanley had a nightmare. And he's got this great offload. When I knew we were signing Staunton, I started watching Rovers a little bit more, seeing what sort of player he was. And he was coming off the bench, great offload. So he'd take the ball up, and he was always looking for that offload. And now we've got somebody to run off him as well. So quite exciting for us, for Matty Staunton. And you also mentioned Corey Hall. It's good to have him back, because I didn't know where he would fit in with our centres. But he had a good... we didn't want to let him go first time round when we picked up Will Dagger. He was sold when we didn't really want him to go, and it's great to have him back as well.
Yeah, it's funny, the transfer business, isn't it? Because, you have to look at... Noah Booth and Neil 𝗪𝗓𝗏𝗏, that deal there. It's, Wakefield and Rovers seem to do quite a bit of business sometimes. But what do you make of that deal between Booth and 𝗪𝗓𝗏𝗏? Because it seems to be weighted in the Robins' favour in terms of we're getting Booth. You've got 𝗪𝗓𝗏𝗏 on a season-long loan with the option for him to then come back. Because I look at that as well. If he does really well, the Rovers would go, great, come back to us and we've got you. What do you make of that bit of business?
Yeah, so we actually had Steve Mills on our podcast, who's our head of recruitment and salary cap manager, about 2 weeks ago, and we asked him about this. And he essentially said Noah Booth is a fantastic prospect, and he genuinely will do really well for you. But equally, his contract was up at the end of the year, and he basically said, I'm going to go to OKR if they offer me a deal, which is totally understandable. One of the best teams in the league, 4-year deal. You can't really argue about that. Yeah. Again, it's a similar thing to you and Staunton. We'd have loved to have kept him, but with it being a salary cap sport, I'm guessing you probably offered him more. And equally, the same way in which Batch left, OKR can actually offer him more in terms of money and prospect as well, which I still do understand. Big Neil, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because obviously we've got him on loan. He's probably not going to play too many games for us. But then I think the way Steve Mills explained on our podcast is that he is actually our player for next year. We just can't make that official until the end of the year. I think something to do with that. But again, there's nothing. I don't know if there's anything in his contract that okay, I'll maybe get first dibs. But he looks raw. He looks like a big body. The highlights I've seen of him, he looks a little bit like Bambi on ice. Sometimes he's got, he's running with high knees and his elbows are sticking upright, but he seems like a good big body as well. So again, I'd have liked to have kept Noah Booth, but like you say, it's more of a business now. And when you get these head of recruitments in who base things off analytics and a Moneyball style, if someone doesn't fit and we can't keep him, then like Willie Peters says, it's time to move on.
Yeah, interesting as well. I think he got, I don't think it was the official man of the match, but he got the supporters man of the match for Hunslet over the weekend, Noah Booth. And of course, a big thing for him is playing rugby. And we saw the try that he scored in the 𝗬𝗂𝗶𝗴𝗲𝗀, that defeat to Leeds. But it's really hard with the Robins at the moment in terms of players of that ilk, because you can't necessarily see a route to the first team just yet, because they're so heavily concentrated on the first team players who are playing. And also a symptom of a good pre-season and having your players fit is the academy don't get a chance, because if you've got your first team players, you're not dropping anybody, are you? You play your experienced ones. So 𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗧, I think he's got, like you said, that real raw quality. He's got that. He looks like a player who's got it all in front of him. It's just whether he can physically bulk out. Can he get that as well? He's got the speed, but has he got the power and the physicality that you need? But I suppose for Wakefield, it's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it? Because if he's not massive on the salary cap, you've got the opportunity to see if he grows. I mean, who are your? I know it won't count for the season, but who are your dual reg partners?
Batley, Dad? Is it Batley?
Batley, yeah, I think
it is Batley
this year. Yeah,
yeah. But although now I think about it, I don't think they haven't actually played anyone yet. From Wakefield. So if we do need to let anyone, it is Batley, I think. Another sponsorship coming on board for the podcast for the 2025 season is the Wakefield Trinity Community Foundation. They are the charitable arm of our very own Wakefield Trinity. Over the last 19 years, they have pledged their time and dedication to use the power of rugby league and physical activity to inspire the outer community, creating lasting legacies for the people within it. Wakefield Trinity has played an integral part in the life of the people of Wakefield and the surrounding communities since its formation in 1873. Sport has a unique ability to raise the spirits and unite different ages, sexes, ethnicities, and social economic groups in a shared passion. The engagement potential of sport and of Wakefield Trinity provides opportunities within the community to provide positive outcomes to people of all ages. The work of the charitable trust is focused around 4 key areas, namely rugby league, education, youth engagement, and heritage and community projects. The work of the trust occurs across the Wakefield district and beyond, focusing on all ages ranging from 4 years old all the way up to 85. It is an absolute pleasure to bring them on board for the 2025 season.
Yeah. So I tell you what, though, what's been really exciting is about, you mentioned about the experience at Wakefield and the ground improvements. I've seen they've just put a new temporary terracing in front of the big box stand at the. If I'm a Rovers supporter, because there'll be many people listening to this now, what's the experience like down at Wakefield for supporters?
So, Dad, you're probably best to say this. I can fill in. So Dad works there as the historian full time. I go, obviously, as part of the podcast team, but I go as a fan. So, Dad, if you answer this from your end, then I can answer as a fan.
Yeah, I think from all the Rovers, you're all going to be on the West Terrace, which is opposite the main stand. That's where all the away fans go. Yeah. But they did open up with in that area, which is like the block of flats behind the post. They did open up a bar for the Rovers fans, but I don't think anybody's taking it up. It used to be the past players bar that we all go in, and then they opened it up for that front terracing. I think that's for Rovers fans as well, and they're going to open the bar up as well. but it was just a couple of extra quid, but nobody took it up. So at the moment, I've no idea who's going to stand on that new terracing. I think it's Rovers fans, but they've also got the West Terrace. But I've also understand you're bringing about 2,000. I think you've taken 2,000 tickets, so you might fill the West Terrace and the South Stand as well.
Yeah. I seen on social media literally just before coming on air to do this. I think we'd sold 1,300 tickets.
All right.
Obviously, it's half-term week as well.
Yeah.
So you've got the potential for more people. Like I think you guys said, though, Thursday nights are a killer sometimes for people, aren't they? Because
it's a shame. Yeah.
You know, people plan the weekends by your Friday night. Because, you know, if you've been at work all week, you go your Friday nights, you blow out, then you can relax and have your weekend. Thursday night, if you've still got another day at work, it's not quite it's a different, innit? Your mentality is different for the Thursday night games.
Yeah. And I think from a fan perspective, answering that, Johno, it's getting better at Trinity. Obviously, I think last year was a lot of trial and error on different things they can do on match day. I think a lot of it depends on when the sun's shining and maybe a Sunday afternoon. Thursday evening, it's difficult. Like last year, they had like live bands on. They had couple of chip vans, new like burger institutions around there. They had like discounts on beer and on food and stuff like that. Again, I think what I've heard is they're actually trying to base what they do off what 𝗀𝗂𝗃 do, because obviously you've got that pretty much. I can't believe the full end where you have a bit of a party, really, more than we obviously don't have the room for that because we've got all four sides stacked up, but we're trying to create more of a buzz outside the ground. Like actually physically outside the ground to then lead inside the ground to get us a bit of cash and a bit of money as well. Like I'm trying to think what they did last year. They had a couple of live bands. They had a bit of live music. Obviously they've got their cheerleaders, the pre-game kids on as well. But it is a good vibe. It's obviously going to be difficult on Thursday because it's probably going to be freezing. It's going to be dark. It's a Thursday night game. I think people are going to just turn up for the rugby, but it's getting better. And I think people will, I obviously we're biased. I think Bellevue, or the DIY Kitchen Stadium, as we should call it, is a proper old school rugby league ground. I enjoy watching rugby league there. We went to Bradford the other week, and again, it's difficult. You feel like you're 1,000 miles away, and you know you go to these bigger stadiums at Huddersfield and Wigan and Hull FC. You don't feel like you're at a rugby league ground, but you go to 𝗀𝗂𝗃, you go to Cash, you go to Wakefield, you go to Leeds. Proper rugby league grounds, aren't they? And I bet as an away fan, you don't mind coming to Wakefield.
Yeah, but mate, to be fair, do you know what? I'm in two minds now because like I'm all for nostalgia. I love, football. I love going watching football. I like going to all grounds and stuff. The only thing I've got now is if I'm paying 30 odd quid for a ticket to stand on some terracing which isn't fit for purpose, and I can't go for a slash, and my lad who I'm taking can't go get something to eat, and that's for me now where. And I think that's where credit to Wakefield is. They've identified actually, well, if we want to make more money, we need to do something about it. We need to make it a better experience. We need to make people feel welcome. We need to make our opportunities for people to eat and drink. We need to make it better because that's how we're going to make more money. And I think that's where maybe rugby league in certain places has been sort of left behind, which is great for like Wakefield and like for you guys to then go, well, no, it's not been good enough. We need to change it. We want more people coming through. We can do it, by rugby, by succeeding, playing well, great products on the pitch. But actually, how do we make our ground a place where people want to come to? And I think that takes money. It takes investment. You can't deny that. But hopefully, they'll reap the benefits of that because the fact that you're talking about an 8,000 plus crowd for a round two fixture, that wouldn't have happened for a long time, would it? That's so hopefully people go in, they're backing the owner, they're backing the club, they're putting the money in, they're buying the food, they're buying the drink, they're buying the shirts, they're obviously spending money on the tickets. Rovers fans are doing that in terms of it being a away game. People are going to spend more money because there's more opportunity to, why have one burger van when you can have five? Because people are more likely to spend it rather than standing in a long queue and going, do you know what, balls to this? These are the little things. So it's not rocket science, but it's got someone to be brave and bold to be able to do it. And I think now Wakefield have been sort of reignited, and I think they've got that spark, and the people behind the scenes have got that spark. Ultimately, when they get that spark, as supporters, you reap the benefit because, you know, who wants to have a crappy burger? You want to have a good burger? Who wants a crappy pie? You want a good... And also, you'll pay more for it if it's better. And I think they're the little wins. And I think for all of Super League, all of Rugby League, you know, we're not it's not brain surgery, is it? It's not brain surgery. Like, some things are just basic. Yeah. Just give people good quality things at a reasonable price, and people pay it, and give them more and give them an experience. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to Wakefield. The last game we came to was the game just before the playoffs when we beat was it 50 odd points, and that points difference put us into the playoffs in terms of finishing second. I'm really looking forward to see the changes. I'm looking forward to watching Rugby League. I'm looking forward to the game because I do think Wakefield will prove a real tough challenge for the Robins. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion whatsoever. I think this game is, I'm not saying it's 50-50, but I think if the Robins play like they did against Castleford, there's every opportunity that Wakefield could come away with a victory.
Very much so. And I guarantee, mate, you know, Matt Ellis, our owner, listens to this podcast, so he'll have taken everything you've just said as an away fan on board. Yeah. You might even, next time you come in, you might have Johno's burger van just there for you, mate. You never know.
Yeah. Double cheeseburger, thank you.
I love it, mate. Just before we go on to Dad's stats, Dad has the Wakefield Trinity historian, collates all the stats, so he's going to actually make some...
Excellent.
Tell us about some Trinity and Old KR stats. What kind of, not worries, but what do you look at Trinity and kind of think, right, he's going to cause us problems. He's going to be their best player. Have you got any questions for us or anything you've got worried about in Trinity's ranks?
I suppose with Trinity, like you guys, you've still got that rawness, haven't you? You've still got that you've got that feel good factor about being promoted. So it's not necessarily picking out individual players. You know, we've mentioned, you know, some of the players who can strike a threat. But as a club, when you're coming up against a club who's got that feel good factor, that don't forget as well, coming off beating Leeds, you know, which actually I'm not that surprised. I think Leeds, I mean, this is a totally separate conversation. The amount of smoke that's been blown up Leeds' arse, basically, because they've got Brad Arthur had a good pre-season in terms of fitness training. Well, so has everybody else. It's not like a miracle. And then all of a sudden we sign Jake Connor and think he's the best player. Anyway, you know, so I wasn't surprised that you beat them. But you're a dangerous beast because of all them positive factors you've got going in your favour. You know, the team talk will be about, no, this is our first home game. We need to make this a fortress. We want to make it as difficult as possible. We've got the fans who are backing us, our owners backing us. So I don't necessarily look at individual players in this respect. I'm looking at you as a collective, which probably you might not have had for a long time. Like, as you're all united, players, staff, team. And I think that's where you're dangerous because it's that collective which sometimes is hard to take on. You know, you like I said, you've got the players like Meakin and players like that. But yeah, I think your strength is the team, and I think Daryl Powell's done a great job in probably being able to blend that team and being able to develop that. So that's what I'm worried about, not individuals, the collective and what they will bring to the Robins. Because I think you're going to be formidable opposition in terms of that round 2 fixture, and now you've beat Leeds, although, you know, I don't think that's the scalp that some Leeds fans maybe think it is, but I think, yeah, that's what I'm worried about, just the whole everything.
Yeah, just before I move on to the stats, I mentioned it on our podcast the other day, and again, talking Leeds, all the experts were tipping them as 4th. And I'm thinking, what am I missing here? I can't see why they're going to be 4th.
No,
you know, I saw they didn't seem fit last year. Yeah, they've had a good pre-season, but like you've just said, everybody has, and we proved them on Saturday. Anyway, a few statistics. It's something I always collate, and I've got bags and bags of them. On when we meet each other on Thursday. We've had 238 games in the past since 1899. And would you believe, in those 238 games, Trinity have won 109, Rovers have won 108. So it's so close. They're the sort of teams that over the years, over 120 odd years, we've always been quite close. You know, everybody has their ups and downs, and we've had a good run, and Rovers have a good run. But in 238 games, there's only one win between us. We've had 11 draws as well over those 100 odd years. At Trinity, there's been 115 games at Bellevue. We've won 72. Rovers have won 36. In Super League, since we came up in 1999. When we came up in 1999 and then Rovers came up a little bit later, we've had 35 games. And again, it's close again. In those 35 Super League games, Trinity have won 17, Rovers have won 18. So again, just close, even though we're talking 100 years in the last 20 odd years, it's still close. At Trinity, there's been 17 Super League games at Bellevue. We've won 10 and Rovers have won 7. We've actually only won 1 of the last 6 games with Rovers, and that was back in August 2022. We won 18-6. Last time we were in Super League in 2023, we lost all 3. The first one was a Friday night when it peed it down. It just rained all night long. We had no fullback. We had a young kid making his debut at fullback called Robbie Butterworth, and you bombed him all night long. And you beat us 34-6. The last game of the season, we were already relegated. You beat us 56-12. Remember that one. And then we went to Rovers early in June. It was Luke Gale's debut, and we didn't do too bad. We lost 28-12, but Rovers were on a roll then. I remember that. So, but we stuck at it. I thought we were going to cause a bit of a shock that night. But yeah, we've lost our last 3 and only won one of our last 6 against Rovers. The last 6 games at Bellevue, we've won 3. Rovers have won 3. I remember one because one was behind closed doors, and I was a ball boy. The attendance, there was nobody there, but there was 6 of us as ball boys, and I sneaked in, and I was behind the post. Trinity won 48-18, so it's quite an iconic night watching it because you could hear every move, you could hear every player talking. It was a strange night. So those are the sort of stats over the years. I'm not going to reel all these off because it's a quiz on its own, but I've looked at all the players that have played for both sides. In the whole of our history, there's 89 players played for both sides. In the summer era, since 1996 and the game changed, there's 44 players played for both sides in the last 20 odd years. Hell of a lot of players crossed over. You know, we've mentioned a lot already. Rovers signed 3 of ours 2 or 3 years ago. We've picked up a couple now. You've got names like 𝗀𝗻𝗄𝗏, who played for us and went over to Rovers on loan. We've mentioned Batchelor. I'm going through in alphabetical order. Ben Cockayne, Paul Cook, Will Dagger, Dale Ferguson, Sean Gleeson, Kevin Gray, George Griffin, Corey Hall, Craig Hall, Ian Hughes, Jimmy Kinehorse, George King, Tommy Lee, Tyrone McCarthy. Rowan Mills came on loan for us, who I was quite impressed with, but he only played a game. Justin Poore, Nick Scruton, my old mate Richard Slater, Bright Sodgy, Francis Stevenson, Matty Staunton, Kelepi Tanginoa, all the way down to Frank Wattini, Jai Whitbread. So I could go on and on and on, and I haven't even mentioned the 80s, but that's our history. And again, so just talking history, 3 of our greatest ever players in Wakefield's history, Neil Fox, Jonathan Parkin, Derek Turner, they all played for Rovers as well, because Derek Turner started at Rovers, Jonty Parkin finished at Rovers in the 30s, and Neil Fox sort of broke records at both clubs in the 50s, 60s, 70s. So that's my sort of take on the history of Trinity and Hull Kingston Rovers, the Robins.
Superb, brilliant. I'm up for it now. I could watch it. I could watch it now. Why ain't it starting 3 games ahead? Johno, just before we round off, mate, you do score predictions. What are you thinking for Thursday night? Come Friday morning, what do you think the score's going to be? How do you think it's going to pan out?
Oh, do you know what? I've literally, while your old man was talking there, I've been thinking about scores, and I wouldn't be surprised if it went Golden Point again. Logical Ed says 22-16 Rovers. I think there'll be points in it. Yeah, it's a tough one. These early round games are so hard to predict now, aren't they, in terms of what you've seen after round 1. I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, if it went to Golden Point. I think Rovers will win, if I'm honest, like hand on heart. I do think they've got enough quality, and I think they've got the strike players who can really cause you problems. But I don't think it's a foregone conclusion in terms of the score line and it being anything like a runaway score. So it's I'd be like 22-16, something like that, I think.
Dad, what are you thinking?
3 weeks ago, I was hoping we won't get embarrassed because I knew what sort of Rovers would be, and I saw their squad, and even though I was quite happy with our squad, but even we've had a few injuries, and watching Rovers play last week, surely they can't be as bad again. But we keep mentioning it tonight, Thursday night under the lights, 8,000 and the fireworks. I think we could nick it. I think we'll be up. Watching our pack against Leeds on Saturday, even though we had 3 starting forwards missing, our replacements all stepped up, and I just think we'll stand up and face that 𝗀𝗂𝗃 pack. And I think we'll rattle them. I think we'll beat them. But I don't want golden point because I can do it out of the stress of it. I don't like golden point. I think we'll nick it by 2.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to mix both of yours together. Obviously, I'm gonna have to say Wakefield. I'm gonna have to say Wakefield win, otherwise we won't have a podcast. But I think it'll be tight. I think if this game was reversed and we were going over to you in round 2, I probably wouldn't back us too much.
Yeah,
and I think it could be very difficult for us. But like you say, return to Super League at Belle Vue. It's our first game under the Ellis family at Belle Vue at Super League, and we're coming off a great win for us. 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗏 are still on form, but they didn't perform as well. I can see it being tight. I think there's going to be a lot of viewership. I think this is the game where you bring in fans who haven't seen Super League before. You watch a game on TV for the first time, you flick it over and you say, oh, what's this? This is a unique looking ground. It's white against red. It's some tough players. You got Wadea-Hargreaves against McMeekin. You've got Evalds against Jowett. You've got Lewis against Truman. I think it's a fantastic, elite, perfect example of what a rugby league game should be. I think we'll try and rattle Mikey Lewis, knowing Daryl Powell. I wouldn't be surprised if someone ends up in a scrap with him, knowing Mason Lino, even though he got sin-binned himself last week and they could end up with a bit of a tussle. I think the key battle is McMeekin against Sue. Everyone's going to be looking at Wadea-Hargreaves, but Suaso Sue's the one who does long minutes, and he's the one who's going to punch holes, and he's the one who's going to make a lot of yards. Mickey McIlorm as well. I forgot about him. He's going to be in there nicking a few bits as well.
Only played 20 minutes against Cass.
Did he? Well, there you go.
Yeah.
That might be an injury.
He started 20 minutes and then Jez Litton came on, and then McIlorm never came back on. Nothing to do with injury.
To be fair, again, Jez Litton, fantastic play. You've got a brilliant squad. So yeah, I'm gonna probably say it can easily go to golden point. I'll say we nick it by 2 points, maybe a last minute try from Tom Johnston.
Steve, great to have you back on the Robin Pod. We've just heard from Ian and Lee from the Wakefield Trinity Heritage Podcast. Since we recorded that, the squads have been announced for the game on Thursday night. Is it a game that you're looking forward to, Steve?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. People are going to... I think Wakefield get 10 start on the come, which seems a lot to me. It'll be very, very tight. We spoke last week on Rovers Remembered about our first game in Super League against Wakefield. Well, this is almost Wakefield's equivalent game, isn't it? It's although it's their second game in Super League, they're at home to Rovers. I think it'll be a tight game. But I think we were better than the margin against Castleford. And I noticed Wakefield scored all their points in a 10-minute spell against Leeds. So, yeah, it'll be tight, but I think we'll come out on top.
Yeah, the Wakefield attack against Leeds, did prove fruitful in the end of it, and they did pepper with them some great attacking play. The Wakefield lads who we've just spoke to, they're confident that they can come away with a victory. I said that I'm fearful of Wakefield, but when you look at the squad that they've announced, it's missing Cameron Scott, Liam Hood, Kai Rodwell, Renault Attorney, Josh Griffin, Nicotimo, Matty Russell, Miles Lawford. So they're not going into it in rude health at the moment. That said, these early games, they are tough, as Castleford proved on Friday night.
Absolutely. I mean, you look throughout Super League history, the teams that you think are easy at the beginning of the season aren't. The generally, I know you've gone through a lot of injuries with Wakefield, but they've got a bit of momentum with the Leeds success that they had. Although I thought Leeds played pretty poorly. Wakefield will have that momentum, and they'll want to put on a show in front of the home supporters.
Yeah, no doubt, Steve. The main reason we've got you back on this week on the Robin Pod is, of course, the new feature. We mentioned it last week. Last season, you covered some of the great players who've played for Old Kingston Rovers and give us the lowdown on their career. We've changed it for this season, where now we're going to be looking at former games and games that were important in the Robins' heritage. We've slightly tweaked it. So from next week, we'll be looking at games that featured the upcoming opposition that the Robins will be facing. This game, though, Steve, I'm sure is one that'll live long in the memory for many Old Kingston Rovers supporters.
Yeah, you know, the day, the 3rd of May, is tattooed into Rovers' hearts, isn't it? The 3rd of May was the date we beat Hull FC at Wembley. However, 2 years later, the 3rd of May was the day, it was a bank holiday Monday, and it was the day of the first round of the old Premiership. For those new listeners or viewers who don't know what the Premiership was, and there are many, you know, that have joined the club in the last 20 years that won't remember the Premiership. But the Premiership was played between, the Championship went to the top team in the league, and then there was an eight-team Premiership resulting in a final, often at a big ground. And Rovers that year finished 4th, and they were due to play the 5th place team, which was Bradford Northern, not Bradford Bulls, you know, Bradford Northern. And so they'd already played each other 3 times that season, with Rovers holding a 2-1 victory margin. And so Bradford came to Craven Park, bank holiday Monday, sunny day, massive crowd, and we all expected a great game. But we didn't expect what we got. And what we got was a vicious game. Things kicked off from the start. I spoke to 𝗪𝗏𝗏 recently about this, and I asked him, but by the way, there were 6 people sent off in this game. And I asked him who the 2 Rovers players were. And he said he couldn't remember because he was in hospital after 10 minutes of the game. They took him to hospital, and that was the type of game it was. There was a lot of bitter rivalry that must have come up through the 3 previous games. And the referee, Robin Wakefield from Widnes, he wasn't averse to letting a little bit of knuckle go, because he's an ex-player who had a reputation himself for getting sent off. And so in the melting pot came this, they played each other 3 times. There was a lot of animosity between the clubs, and you had players that had personal scores to settle from the previous 3 games. And as I say, 𝗪𝗏𝗏 ended up in the Hull Royal after 10 minutes. And the game was just a lot of mass brawls. When I tell you that one of the Rovers players who got sent off was Steve Hartley, then you know there must have been something wrong. But I can recall Steve getting coat-angered twice. And the second time he got up and I think it was 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏, the Bradford player, he launched into him. And I vividly remember Robin Whitfield. He dived into the middle of the melee. You know, the referees nowadays just stand and blow a whistle and wait for it to calm down. Not Robin Whitfield. He dived into the middle of it and dragged Steve Hartley out of it and then sent him off with 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏. But I remember Steve Crooks, who was Rovers prop at the time, he decided to take his own retribution on a few of the Bradford players. And that's how the game went. But what happened then, Rovers had led at half-time, and I think they were about 17-5 up in the 65th minute. The referee had sent John Millington off, who had had his own battle with his opposing prop, and they sent one other Bradford player off. And then one man who was causing a lot of the nastiness was Jeff Gratian, the Bradford captain. And the referee had enough of Gratian, and he said to Gratian, go and have an early shower. And Gratian just turned round. And remember, this Bradford team was a good Bradford team. They had noble people like that in the team. And Gratian turned round to the rest of the Bradford team and says, come on, lads, we've had enough, we're going. And they walked off the pitch. And that that left us in a bit of a situation, not knowing whether the game was going to continue or not. And Wakefield, I spoke to him about the game many times afterwards, and he said, I was in the dressing room. He says, I had one team not wanting to come on, not another team wanting to come on. He says, and I wanted to carry on with it, but if there's no opposition, I had no alternative but to call the match off. And Rovers got awarded the match. Yeah, I mean, when you look at Whitfield's record of, he played for Widnes, Huyton and Barrow, and Huyton actually rescinded his contract because he kept getting sent off, and then he became a referee. So he was quite happy for certain things to go on. I'm pretty sure it was Robin Whitfield. I may be wrong here, but didn't Robin Whitfield referee the game we played against Queensland when the Queensland hooker, when Matt Broadhurst took things into his own hands? And I can vividly recall Whitfield leaning over the injured player and saying, get up and get on with the game. The guy had got a broken jaw. So that was Robin Whitfield. He wasn't averse to letting quite a bit go during the game, but it worked against him. Bradford got banned from 3 tournaments, but then they got the ban suspended for 3 years. And it made the news all over the place at the time. But it was an interesting day, 3rd of May 1982.
Yeah, I've just had a look, Stephen. The players weren't the only casualties in terms of injuries and being sent off, but the Bradford Northern chairman eventually fell on his sword because he backed the players walking off the pitch. Yeah, so he actually then paid the price for. So it's a huge, just a huge story, wasn't it, at the time?
Yeah, massive. I mean, funnily enough, I had a pub in Bradford at the time, and I went to the game and I came back to Bradford, walked in the bar, and I got everything pelted at me, saying how dirty 𝗀𝗂𝗃𝗧 were. But, you know, Jeff Grayson, it was a colossus in the game in some ways, but to lead his players off was way out of order. And I became friends with Peter Fox, who I think was the Bradford coach at the time. I asked him about the game. He said he should never have done it, but Wakefield let so much go that in the end, Jeff Grayson lost his rag and pulled them all off. I think had I been Peter Fox, I'd have gone in the dressing room and said, get your backsides back out there, let's finish this game. But Bradford would have been down to 9 men. And I guess there was about 15 minutes to go. And so, it worked out the way it worked out. But it caused a lot of animosity between the clubs at the time.
Yeah, like I said at the start, Steve, a game that will live long in the memory of lots of Hull KR supporters. Let's bring it back up to the present day. I've still haven't sorted out a fancy jingle yet, but we've got question time. Obviously, we invite questions from the viewers and listeners to ask us whatever they want regarding Hull Kingston Rovers or whatever they want. It could be absolutely anything. So, Steve, it'd be great for you just to stay on and help me answer these questions.
I'll give it a go.
Yeah, over on Facebook, he said, so for the last 2 games, we've kept the same starting 17. At York, we was dominant. Then against Cass, we wasn't so dominant. I think our starting pack needs tweaking. So my question is, would you start Jared Waerea-Hargreaves or Sue off the bench? Or would you start JWH and Sue off the bench and start Hadley? For me, the pack seems a little unsettled and 𝗂𝗏𝗄 seems wasted, sat on the bench until the 73rd minute. Also, would you start Jez against Wakey? So a few questions within a question there, Steve.
Yeah, it's funny. I noticed during the game last week, it was when the subs came on that we began to open up a little bit. But I think Waerea-Hargreaves and Sue would soften the cast pack up a bit. The Tanganoa thing, I can't understand why we don't bring him on much sooner. Remember, we scored 4 tries to 3 last week, so let's put that to bed. That Castleford were that much better than us. They weren't. And all the kind of 50-50s, the look of the bounce went Castleford's way. I'm not saying that they were very lucky. They weren't lucky. They were having a go, especially given what had happened the week before. But as far as Rovers pack's concerned, I think I'd go out with that pack. Let them soften up the opposition, and then bring the boys on who can make holes in the defence.
Yeah,
I'd start with that pack, but I'd like to bring Tangano on.
I think I mentioned earlier, Hargreaves is probably guilty of trying too hard. I think he probably went away from what he'd normally do, so it'd be good to see him get that opportunity to start again against Wakefield and see what he brings. And of course, we saw 𝗀𝗲𝗏𝗀𝗃𝗏 come off the bench. Would you like to see him start, or do you still see him as that impact player at the moment?
I still see him as that impact player. I thought Mickey Mack, I thought he did a job. You're not going to see Mickey Mack running from the base of the play the ball anymore. I don't think, not that often. He hasn't got the speed for it, so that's where we miss 𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗀𝗃𝗏𝗀. 𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗃 used to do those lovely runs, and 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗏𝗀, I think he dropped off form towards the end of last season, but I think that he showed on Friday last week that he still got it. But I would leave the front rows to sort out the opposition forwards, keep things equal, and then after about 17, 18 minutes, start bringing on people like 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗏𝗀 and whoever's on the bench. You know.
Yeah, Grumpy Arse on XE said, with the pack being stacked, I'm not sure we're going to get the best of it. Tangano needs more minutes. Losing his bang to accommodate Martin and Batch may not be the best over the long run. Hadley in the middle is wasted. Too many back rowers. Luckily would be preferred. Of course, Luckilly's out injured at the moment. I'm not quite sure the timeline on him coming back. Of course, is another option, and Willie Peters will be pleased to have that many options. So, hey, look, it's the first game, isn't it? We've played a warm-up game, we've played a cup game, now we've played a Super League game. I think there's still plenty more from this side to come. So I'd think just keep the faith for this one at the moment, because, you know, although maybe might not have been the performance that we wanted or expected against Cass, I think there was still lots of good things to come from that, and that result, that performance may give them kick up the backside to go, hang on, don't fall in love with yourselves. We haven't.
If you remember last season, last time we actually met face to face, we were at Cass, weren't we?
Yeah.
And what did we win that game by? By 1 point.
1 point. Yeah.
You know, and what happened the rest of the season? Well, that's history, you know. So Cass are always going to play well against it, and I think Wakefield will have a right good dig. But if we, you know, there's times in the past when in that type of a match we've got beaten, you know, and now, you know, we even if we won every match by 1 point, it don't mean. No. Do you know what I mean? It's the game's tough, and there's no easy fixtures out there at the moment.
Dawn Kirby. I don't know if you managed to catch it, Steve, but she's asked, what did you think of Danny Richardson's performance this week for Huddersfield? Of course, they went down to a defeat to Warrington Wolves. I mean, you wouldn't have known Danny Richardson was playing, bearing in mind that all the talk was about Tom and Sam Burgess. I didn't catch the game, but it's only good.
Apart from putting the ball out on the full on one occasion, I thought he had a good game.
Yeah.
I thought he had a really good game, and it was only at that point, after that point, when the ball went out on the full, and Warrington came back more and more. I think Warrington were worth the victory, but that margin could have been less, you know. And I thought Danny dictated a lot of play, and you got to look who he was up against, you know. George Williams. You know.
And it's a deal that works for everyone, isn't it? Because it works for us in terms of getting Danny closer to being match sharp, just in case he is called upon in the event of an injury to Mikey Lewis or Tyrone May. He's getting to play, which every player wants to do, and he's not playing in the Championship. He's playing in Super League, which is even more important because he's going to be tested. So, it's.
What I liked was that it wasn't cup side. They wouldn't let him play in the cup. So,
and I think he's on a week-to-week deal now, where basically, as much as when they need him, he'll be playing. Going slightly off kill, Mike Matthews on XE says, did anybody go to Goole and what are the facilities like? I didn't go, but I know they've got a crowd of just over 500. There's a lot of development work going on at Goole at the moment because they're installing a new 3G artificial pitch. They've knocked down the old stand where they house the bar, and there's a lot of investment going into that site. They've got a couple of temporary seating stands, and they have brought in, a little mini Craven Street. So they've got, bars, food outlets and stuff like that. So, I'm hoping to get down there, Steve, and catch a couple of games, just because I love watching rugby league. And of course, the Robins have loaned them a few players as well. We've got Lenny Ellis down there. We've got Tennyson. I'm sure there's likely to be more to head down to the pleasure ground in Gould. So yeah, it's a side I hope to catch at some point this season.
Yeah, I go past it regularly on the train, and I've noticed the works that's going on in the ground. What amazed me was they've got this kind of Craven Street area, which the other lot decry as far as we're concerned. Yet a lot of the crowd was singing Old Faithful, so they're quite happy to use that kind of facility. But no, the ground when it's finished will be good.
Singing a song when the red robin comes bobbing, when the red robin comes bobbing, when the red robin comes bobbing along.
The Robin Pod is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are a reputable East Hull-based car specialist and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull KR Rovers Forever members.